Not motherfucking Theo Huxtable or some Hispanic, you know what I'm saying? Just because they look like us, just because they come from a community of identity that's impacted, don't make them directly fucking impacted. Are y'all with me? Raise a fist up if you're fucking with me. So this is where us as formerly incarcerated people have to demand that our voice be centered as directly impacted people, because we are the casualties of police terrorism. And we have to lift up the family members whose loved ones have been killed by the police, because that could have been motherfucking us. That could have been us. When I got arrested, I had a fucking SWAT team with a whole bunch of motherfucking militarized police pointing weapons at my fucking head with my co-defendant at the time, threatening to blow my fucking head off. One trigger happy fucking rookie could have taken me out and nobody would give a fuck. Y'all wouldn't even know my name right now. So when I say that these issues are inextricably linked, we need to own that shit and recognize we have to be in solidarity with all the family members whose loved ones haven't been as fortunate and they've murdered our people. And that's who needs to be centered in this motherfucking movement. So that I want to just say, and I'm going to defer to Dorsey because I'm cussing up a storm and I'm mad and I got a lot more shit to say and I don't want to take up too much space. What I want to say is we're leaning in on the motherfucking streets and we're leaning in on the motherfucking policy level. I'm engaging with the fucking governor's office and I'm engaging on the motherfucking block. And we have to be doing both, y'all. And I know it's motherfucking like, it's a burden because we see these motherfucking intermediaries and all they want to do is write a motherfucking letter that everybody signs on to as they sit in their fucking comfort of their home as armchair fucking revolutionaries profiting from our oppression because they get funding, they get salaries, they pay for their kids' college tuition, they pay a car note, they pay a mortgage note off of our fucking oppression. So yes, we have to work harder. But this is our motherfucking freedom at stake. So I would love to kind of defer to my brother Dorsey because I know at least in California, and I think we can also talk about what else is happening across the nation, there is opportunity. The political alignment, what's happening on the streets, it gives us an opportunity to push some radical reform. What's happening with the city of Minneapolis talking about disbanding the police is unfucking precedented. They lit up and burnt down a fucking police station. It's motherfucking unprecedented. So there's opportunity, but the key word is opportunity. And this is not something that we can afford to squander, y'all. This moment may not come again. And if it does, I don't have the patience to wait another fucking 30 years. You know what I'm saying? Or whatever the fuck, how long it will be. But in California, my OG, my elder, my comrade Dorsey, we doing actions together on the block. And we got something planned on the Capitol. I don't know if we could talk about it in this format, in this platform, but we got some shit planned in the works, y'all. So let me pass it on to my OG elder, Dorsey.
Dorsey, you're on mute.
You on mute, Dorsey.
I need to say that me and George marched around Oakland, and what we was demanding was Black and brown unity. Because like what they did was killed Eric Salgado. They shot at him 40 times. They killed him probably 4 days ago, and shot his woman and she was pregnant. And she was
baby. They killed the baby.
And lost the baby. And lost the baby too. So it's like, and if y'all haven't noticed, they only able to mention 5 or 6 names of high profile cases when they've been killing us by the hundreds. And nobody's mentioning all those names. So how do we do something like that? So like one of the things that me and George is looking at in Sacramento is we looking at doing the research and breaking out 500 names of people that they'd have murdered. Then we're going to position people 6 feet apart and surround the state capitol and hold up the pictures of people that they'd have murdered because they keep saying that it's a bad apple. It ain't a fucking bad apple. It's a goddamn bad orchard. So keep saying we only did this one. And if you add them all up, I think Paula told me the day before yesterday, she was already up to 288. She only been looking for 3 days. So I don't know how you're killing y'all, and I don't know what y'all doing about them being killed. But the other part of it is how do we build movement? And how do we hold all of these people that suddenly became woke because they couldn't deny probably 3 or 4 incidents that they didn't seen over the course of a couple of weeks? So I won't throw it back because I really want to hear what can we do together.
Well,
You know?
before we start thinking about solutions, can we just go around for everybody and see exactly, before I even go on though, I want to say this to everybody who's watching, is that one community, one mic. When we built this platform, when we started this platform, we believe in unity and solution. And I want to let everybody know that people are speaking from the hearts right now. And the whole cursing, I hope that you guys don't get, focused on that, because we're unapologetic about it. We're tired, we're angry, we're confused, amongst other things. And so I just want to let everybody know that before we continue the show. Right now, I'd like to pass it to Turquoise and her son, Elisha, from New York.
Hi, everybody.
How you doing?
Hi, my name is Turquoise, and I am part of the New York chapter of All of Us for None. Introduce yourself.
My name is Elisha, and I am a part of Brotherhood Sister Soul,
Which is a community organization that empowers and teaches liberation for young people in the Harlem community. I want to thank George and Dorsey and everybody that's on here for being a part of the solution and being here. Monday, are we just doing introductions or are we speaking?
Take several minutes. Tell us what
Okay,
you're doing
okay.
back there.
So, thank you, Dorsey. So down in New York, like even before, I'm a community organizer in my district assemblyman's office, and that was an innovative move on his part. Just we don't have many community organizers in those offices, so he's very like grassroots oriented. So when things in our community, there's police terrorism all over the place. So a couple of weeks ago, there was a video about an officer who attacked an innocent bystander and assaulted them. And they wasn't being arrested or detained in that moment. They claimed they were out there to enforce social distancing. And that person was assaulted by the police officer, caught on camera, and then pretty much kidnapped and ransomed and detained to the precinct. And when we get the call in our office, like then we have to do something about it. So those conferences, the video went viral. The officer was removed. He hasn't been charged yet or anything, but he had to be held accountable. And this was like 2 weeks before the death of George Floyd. And I just say that to say that in our communities, that it's not every incident is going viral, or being sensationalized. However, our communities are hurting behind that. And I really want to say, like, healing is revolutionary, right? And if we don't focus on that, we will keep losing. We will keep, we will continue to be fighting and being winded, and we're not restoring our own spirits, because this is not easy work, on any person. However, we have conditions that are in place. And I'm gonna let my son talk about like just going to school and just our daily living conditions. I'm always an advocate for becoming active in your community. Not like it's not always us carrying signs and yelling in the streets and having an uprising. Sometimes it's something as small as joining your tenants association to fix the housing conditions in your building, in your neighborhood. You wanna go ahead, Frank?
Yeah, so, and I also think like one of the solutions for like policing is to like defund the police and instead like put it in schools. Because if you like put money in schools, then kids will get a better education, and people with better education, they usually don't get arrested by the police, and
Who they get arrested by?
they
Who do they get arrested by? The students in school, they get arrested by school safety.
oh, and then some students will also like be like arrested by like school safety, who have their own little chain of command inside of the school and don't have to listen to principals. So if we were to like take money from the police inside of schools and put them into the actual education, then we would be able to get a better education, and then be able to prevent future crime or quote unquote criminals.
And if school to prison pipeline, so less school safety officers and more counselors, right? Like my son goes to a school where they don't have the resources or the access, right? And for them to be targeted in school, like that's not a safe environment. Like I'm all about like decolon, like unschooling. The whole like our society indoctrinates us into thinking that we need to be policed, and these like even when we think about like celebrities and just the roles that they decide to take that portray what the communities that we live in, and we're the ones with the lived experience living there and finding, you know, and holding people accountable. In I want to say December, a friend of mine was murdered in the Bronx, and the news people did a story, and they were talking about the incident and thing point that happened, and then 2 minutes at the end of the story they bring up his criminal record, and that was hurtful, right? So I wrote to the news, the person that reported it, because even if she just read it on the script, you seen it and knew like that this had his past record or history had nothing to do with his death, right? So holding journalists accountable to their journalistic integrity, like what is a solution, right? So I wrote the news station and had them come out to the neighborhood to place like during his vigil. Like they have to do that. Like a lot of us don't know that if something happens to us in our community and they tell a story that does not align, we can hold them accountable. So we can stop the media from portraying us in such a way, or devaluing us and sensation and desensitizing us to our own issues. And they have to come out and change the story.
Yes, you're absolutely right, sis. And I appreciate you and Elisha for sharing that. Folks, we have so many questions going on. Like people want to engage with us. So we're going to ask folks to keep it, if we can, like around 3 minutes. Tariq.
Yeah. One of the things that I've noticed since—
and tell everybody where you're from and just briefly what your experience has been, and we'll talk about solutions in a bit.
Okay. My name is Tariq. I did 31 years and 22 days in slavery. I went in at 17 years old and came out at 48. I fought my way out through the court system. I have two California Supreme Court decisions, one to release me because of constitutional excessive punishment, and another as an extension of that punishment would be released off of parole. I fight for juvenile rights, where no juvenile should ever be detained with adults, whether in prison or otherwise, and the abolishment of the 13th Amendment, where slavery is a legal form of penal punishment. I'm really hoping that we can get to the part that we all, as a community of all of us in none, play in giving the people information, direction, and action steps. We need to be prepared today to move out as leadership on this movement. With people like Michael Jordan pledging $100 million, with other people wanting to get involved of all nationalities. But the first thing I would love to encourage everyone that is on this platform and listening, that this is also a time for national ablution, meaning purification. Each and every one of us has been affected by white supremacy. And when it's my turn to speak on solutions and moving forward, I'd like to also get into how that even became where we are and how we move forward. So with that, I'll pass it to the next person.
Thank you for that. Steve?
Yeah, 3 minutes to talk about what we're experiencing here. I think
Hey,
the
Steve, let
movement is,
everybody know which All of Us None chapter you belong to.
yes, Lennon. Stephen went to All of Us in San Antonio, Texas. It's a very unique type of movement gathering here in some parts of the country, especially places that are in the deep south, like Texas, where activism isn't already at the level as California, New York, and other states. We're like 10 years behind, maybe more. We've been organizing with community coalitions to address these issues, but we do get a lot of resistance from people like Black Lives Matters, who basically asked us to stay out of the conversation, that it wasn't our fight, which kind of caused us to go through this real deep conversation where I got very upset and said, I think that's BS. The truth is that we have been fighting this fight since Dr. King was assassinated, since Rodney King was beaten, and all the way up to George Floyd's killing. And we're going to be here after. And I think that we've experienced that trying to get people to understand that this is actually a shared struggle, and that we can't approach this particularly one race at a time, because that's a trap to have us do this another 400 years for Juanita Gonzalez, who, because the truth is, as I explained to them, and I'm going to stop with this because I have solutions I'd like to talk about, and that is that I'm a brown person with Native American heritage. I have African Americans and Blacks in my family, my grandson, my daughter-in-law. But I'll tell you this: I fight for civil rights every day through the All of Us in an organization. And guess what? My race, the brown race, we do not have, nor are we recognized in the civil rights spectrum like our Black brothers and sisters that we fight for. So remember in this struggle that we are the ones also being left behind, because while we're working to get America together, we're forgetting a whole bunch of other people. And that's the narrative that they want you to follow, so that you don't accomplish the true goal of this movement. And that is to bring about universal change for all people living in a free land like America. And when solution comes, we'll talk then.
Thank you, Steve. Yeah, I know it's really tough to put this all in one. Eusidra? Hey, sis.
Hi, everybody. My name is Eusidra. I'm in Bakersfield, California. I'm the president of our chapter of All of Us or None. And Kern County is the #1 county in the nation for police killings. And so definitely...
you, like, your microphone is like buzzing or something? We really want to hear what you have to say, because I just read some stuff on Bakersfield and I don't want to miss anything.
Kern County is where Bakersfield, California is located, and we are the #1 in police killings. So AB 392 was really important for us to pass, and so we are eagerly waiting on the implementation of all the new policies and procedures for the police department here. My community is not a community that is used to advocacy, so it's taken us a little while, but I agree that we should not just focus on having these endless conversations with no action behind them. I'm involved in a couple of community meetings this week, and that is where I will express that. No, I don't want to have a meeting about another meeting. We want action. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eusidra. Dr. Zaria?
Greetings, everybody. My name is Zaria Davis. I'm out of Cincinnati, Ohio. We are a fairly newer chapter for All of Us or None, and we are really just getting started, but what a time to get started. Cincinnati has a history. I'm not sure how many people are familiar with our area, but about 20 years ago, we had 4 days of unrest after a gentleman here was murdered by the police, and we've had other incidents. And so we really are working to challenge some of the things that were supposed to be addressed 20 years ago that are still not being addressed as it relates to our police department. We have been actively involved with a variety of different things here in our city as far as with recommendations for changes locally. We also have members that are actively engaged in addressing some of the issues that are going on in our prison system here in Ohio. We had one of the largest number of COVID-19 cases in our prisons here, and so there's been a lot of advocacy in that space as well, and it continues because even today, earlier, I was on a call and we were finding out that there are still people who are going into the prisons and being diagnosed going in. So that's a big fight for us as well. We are working with another organization to organize a protest here. One of our members is also the founder of an organization called Ohio Prisoners Justice League. So we're collaborating with them to do a peaceful protest here pretty soon. So we'll be sharing that information with you all. And really just working to address some of our police issues, working with a variety of different groups. And what I will say about Ohio is as soon as we finish our time, we are able to vote. But a lot of times what's happening is they're lying to people as they get home and they're telling them, oh, you have a felony record, you're not allowed to vote. So a lot of what we're doing is we are doing voter registration, but it's also a lot of education that has to come with that because people don't even realize they can vote. And, you know, they're coming home and they have probation officers and other people just flat out lying to them. So we're doing a lot of work around education, around who plays a part in the roles that we are about to vote on pretty soon. We have some pretty big heated elections here in our local area. So we're just trying to really get information out to people through our various sources. And I will also say that, you know, a lot of people have challenges with being able to have a voice in different spaces, but I feel like we've been pretty fortunate in our area that people value our voices. And so they actually call on us. I actually got a call yesterday from the news about, you know, speaking out on like what's going on and what our thoughts are. So we have a platform here in Cincinnati to be able to share and to really grow in this movement. And so just happy to be in this space with you all and just really open to hearing some other thoughts and suggestions as far as policy statewide that we could potentially suggest. I know California, you all are doing a lot. And so I listen to what's being said and just different policies that you all are trying to put in place and seeing how we can adapt those here. But that is something that's really important to us is to change the laws. I'm tired of all the photo ops. I'm tired of all the people with the posts, but it's like, where's the action, you know, behind it? I need to see changes in the laws and the policies. So that's where I am, and I'm just glad to be here with everybody.
Thank you for that, sis. Brother Khalif?
Peace and love, everybody. Brother Khalif from Wisconsin. All of us are non-chapter president up here. We got another chapter in Madison, Wisconsin. So we got 2 chapters in the state of Wisconsin, and we're about to erect the 3rd one in Racine. But I'm directly impacted. I did 15 years in the system. 10 years of that was in solitary confinement and tortured by the Europeans. So I understand the plight all too well. I was beaten and drugged and almost left for dead at 12 years old by the police after running and fleeing from the police. So it's always been a big part of, you know, my history. When things like this happen, you know, it strikes a nerve very specifically. We were involved in the rallies and the protests when Seville got killed up here in Milwaukee. And I think one of the videos we did went viral. We had to surround the city with brothers just to make sure that we protected the family. We did that. And just recently we kicked off the first rally here in Wisconsin, and that spiraled into a bunch of actions all over the state. But then we had to go in and we had to run out them provocateurs out of our neighborhoods that was causing all of the looting and burning up stuff in our communities. And then they go to their communities in Shorewood Hills and the suburbs, and everything is all good and intact. We ran them right back where they came from. So now we we put the protest back in one hand. So if you're not a part of one of those particular groups, you can't protest up here in Wisconsin. You got to be in unison with our people, and our voice is not going to be silenced by nobody. That's how we rocking up here. So one of the things that I did want to address was the problem that we have, and is Brother Dorsey mentioned that, you know, it's a whole bunch of us being killed and gunned down by the police every single day. Every 28 hours, one of us are gunned down and killed by police in this country, and we only hear about one or two every 3-4 months. And that's also got to stop. The biggest plight that we are up against is the Supreme Court ruling that came out in 1989, Graham versus O'Connor. And I did a PowerPoint presentation on this in Florida about 4 or 5 years ago. And in that case, you know, it implemented what was called a reasonable objective standard. And that reasonable objective standard only allows hindsight. It don't allow hindsight, and only the peripheral, what the officer sees in his mind, to be admissible into evidence when you challenging police brutality or excessive force. So that Rehnquist case has caused a lot of confusion in this country, and it has opened the doors for what these police are doing to be legal. All they got to say is that they were afraid for their lives, and that Rehnquist standard will protect them. That's why you see very few of them being prosecuted. We got to burn up whole cities and states just to get 3 officers charged for something that was pretty blatantly in our faces. And this brother was defenseless, and this brother was not a threat, and he was helpless, and he had other problems and situations going on. And it takes something like that for us to go and riot. The brother mentioned earlier about the Hispanics and all lives having to matter. This is something that is sparking a lot of conflict and controversy across the country, because all lives don't matter. And this is not a fight for all lives at this particular point, because we're left out. You get what I'm saying? The so-called Black and brown people have never received full liberation in this country of our civil and human rights. And so this is our plight, and this is what we must fight for. And when we talk about, you know, I don't believe in the Black and brown race. That's not even in the record books at the UN. There's nobody gonna come over here from no country trying to help us out. So we stuck and we out here alone. So we can't operate in silos. The best thing we can do is unify our cause, unify our voices, and make sure that we take back our power. That's my piece.
Thank you, Brother Khalif. Brother Henry?
Good morning, Henry Ortiz with all of us from Sacramento. Formerly incarcerated. Did 18 years. Just been out about 2 years and some change. Just came out whooping ass out here to try to free our people that are in there and reduce the murders that have been going on out here. We've done work out here to get rid of the SROs, the resource officers that were at the schools. We did work around them. I know as a kid, I got my nose broken by a fucking cop over a little riot when I was a youngster or whatever, right? And the dude didn't even write the paperwork. He didn't book me into juvenile hall because he fucked up, right? So these dudes been manipulating the way they do business, the way they do their paperwork. They've done it in the Department of Corrections, you know, to cover up, you know, institutional murders and stuff. And so these are some the cops that have become a gang. They're a gang. Let's not get it fucked up. They're a gang, and they've had racist, discriminatory views towards us, and you know, they've been putting in a lot of work on our people, right? First step with the mass incarceration movement, then now they have the audacity to just start killing us like crazy. You know, I also want to lift up the voice of Manuel Borrego. He's a brother of Gilbert, who just got out. He's out there in Santa Cruz, Barrios Unidos. You know, he reached out to me and like, you know, hey brother, you know, my brother lost his life in 2019 and nobody's ever acknowledged that, right? Like there's been a lot of Chicano lives that have been lost in this fight. and there's not enough acknowledgement of that, right? So I definitely want to. I've been putting pressure on our brown people, right? Because it's a brown issue, people that we need to collaborate. We need to come together and uplift our Black voices, so our Black voices can uplift our brown voices, right? Along with all the allies. So we've been doing a lot of work around that with the protests out here, just on the front lines, still on parole, pushing it as far as I can, and keeping from getting arrested. Last year we got arrested. It was 84 of us that got arrested during the Stephon Clark protest and stuff, and we filed a lawsuit on SAC PD, and so we have a settlement coming on that. At this time around, it got a little crazy in the beginning. There was a lot of people getting hurt, getting shot, and these cops were coming out there and just banging the shit out of our people. Yeah, sure, there was some damages done, right? But the windows and the little freaking knickknacks that people might have taken from these businesses, it is nothing compared to the freaking lives that have been lost. You can replace all that. Most of these business owners have insurance that can replace all that, right? But and that is nothing compared to the life that we're taking. 85% of those young voices, they led a good protest every night for the past 8 days.
Hey, Henry, you breaking up, bro.
Change, whatever it's been intensive, right? It's been Black and brown lives. Hear me now? Hello? You guys hear me?
Yeah, it's good now.
Okay, so just to conclude, we're going to continue the momentum pushing now. I'm working with Chicano leaders out here who have been reaching out, and they want to start organizing. So we're going to be organizing all these Chicano leaders who've been working in their own spaces or been fighting multiple battles, sometimes on their own. And so we're bringing those voices together to uplift our Black and brown voices, but also to make changes at the Capitol. We're also, like last year we passed AB 392, you know what I mean? It doesn't seem to work, right? There's a racist mindset that these people have had towards us for many years. And so there's a lot of colonized views towards who the type of people we are when it comes to the way cops view us. So there's going to definitely be work at the Capitol. We're already working campaigns to defund the police, right? And eventually it would be ideal to start, abolishing these oppressive systems. So with that, shout out to all our movement builders statewide, nationally. Big shout out to all of us on team for always holding it down, for being about the work, and not being like some of these other nonprofits that it disappoints me, right? Not to bash other nonprofits, but the truth of the matter is, when these people are needed, that work with youth, that work with community, are not even present in these spaces where our youth need guidance, right? They need mediation, they need mentoring, and they just need support for us to allow them to become our new voices and our leaders, and so that we can support them and stuff. So we've been definitely not enough support. There's been a lot of grassroots leaders who have stepped up, who don't get funding, who out there pushing, and so big shout out to all our grassroots leaders who continue to do this work day and night, on call and on site. With that, I'll conclude for right now.
Thank you for that, Henry. Before I go to Muffin, I want to ask everybody who is listening right now to that link that you used to click on, send it to someone else, cut and paste it and send it to someone else. Start a watch party on your Facebook page, because yes, this is a long, but it's a conversation, but this is a needed conversation. And we're about to start talking about solutions. And that is so important right now, because again, this is not going to be a moment. This is going to be a movement. There's no turning back. So like George and Dorsey and other folks have said, is that we have to strategize and come up with a solution. So I'm challenging everybody right now to invite someone to this conversation so they can be here for the solution piece. With that, Muffin.
From North Carolina, chapter.
Is that my computer, or can everyone?
Nah, it's her signal or something.
Yeah,
okay.
It's the word. Can y'all hear me?
It's going in and out.
Muffin, if you turn off one of your devices, it will work.
Okay, we're going to check in with Savvy, and Muffin will try back with you to see if you got better connection.
London, what link are you talking about that I can start a watch party with?
Okay, so how you start a watch party is you can go to your Facebook account, and what you do is you go to the All of Us or None page, and you're going to see this right now going live. So what you'll do is you scroll down on your on our All of Us or None Facebook page and start a watch party. And if you got an email from us that's telling you like, hey, we're about to start One Community, One Mic is about to start in the hour. Within that email, there's a link. It's lit up in blue. So you just cut and paste that.
Can y'all hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I see it.
Y'all can hear me?
Oh, there you go. Hey, Savvy.
Morning, everybody. Good evening, afternoon. I know we all on different times. Savvy Shabazz, All of Us Are None, Louisville, Kentucky, state of Kentucky. A lot of the things that we be doing, you know, I'm really big on collaborations, you know, and coalitions, building coalitions with people. So we've been working with just some of the people, the Bell Project, which I also work for, Black Lives Matters, L Surge, Louisville Standing Up for Racial Justice, Louisville Alliance for Justice. We just been out protesting. We've been on the front lines. I think somebody, it may have been Dorsey or London, said they seen the Kentucky the flag on CNN. So we're on the front lines every day. One of the things that we really pushing. I don't know if everybody remembers Katura. She travels with us, a great supporter and member. She actually started the hashtag No More No Knock campaign. And it really took off. It's really taken off across not only the state of Kentucky, but across the nation as well. And what we mean by that is there was a no knock warrant that was issued that took the life of Breonna Taylor. So we're actually in fighting to get that abolished here in the state of Kentucky. We have a rally tomorrow in front of the council hall because they actually suspended that bill for that. Suspending it meaning that it can come back. You know, we want to totally get rid of that because it's cost people their lives, right? So we want to get rid of that to where we never hear about that again. So that's one of the movements that we got. And big shout out and salute to Katura for actually kicking that off. We're also pushing defunding the LMPD. We just seen something today where they've gotten $180 million. And the way I look at it is you got $180 million to make mistakes. And we want you held accountable for those mistakes. So what we're actually looking at is to defund and take some of the funding that you've been getting because obviously you're not capable of doing your job. You know, you say protect and serve, and it's like I think we all know across the board that's not what's happening. It's not what we're seeing, and it's not what we're experiencing either. So with that, we want to take some of that funding and we actually want to put it toward organizations and programs and movements that's in the community that's actually doing grassroots work, that's actually working with our people. I think we've gotten to the point where that police relationship is just not going to happen. I know for a lot of people on the call, especially if you're me, from my own lived experience, it's just not going to happen. That relationship is not going to be there. But we do want to take some of that funding and put back into our people and back into our grassroots organizers and the people that's on the front lines. We're also really pushing for the firing and the arrest and the conviction of those officers that were involved. And nothing has happened. So we've been out here protesting. If I'm not mistaken, I think this is the 13th, maybe 14th day, and we're not going anywhere. We're right across the street from the mayor's office. We have an area, there's an area, Justice Park. We renamed it Injustice Park. And this is where you'll find everybody protesting every day. All different organizations are there. We're usually there till about 9 o'clock at night, Monday through Monday, every day. And nothing's happened. The mayor, he's made several calls and appearances. Nothing is happening with these officers. And to top that off, we also had David McAtee, who was a community member that lost his life due to the hands of a mistake. What we suspect is a mistake. The National Guard was actually called in to disperse a crowd this crowd is usually there every Sunday night, and we don't have an understanding of why the National Guard assisted LMPD, and it ended up another person losing their lives. So those are some of the things that we have going on here in Kentucky, and we're going to continue to be on the front lines. When you click on your news, look for that flag, because I'm going to have that flag waving everywhere we go. And that's what we're trying to do here in Kentucky.
Thank you for that, Brother Savvy. Muffin, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can y'all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm traveling right now. And traffic is the signal's choppy. But I'm Muffin from the Durham, North Carolina chapter of All of Us or None, and the director of the North Carolina Community Bail Fund of Durham. And what we've been doing prior to everything with the George Floyd, we were doing rolling protests every Friday. So the campaign we're focusing on is Free Them All, and we want everyone to be released because, one, they haven't been convicted of a crime, and two, their crime doesn't require a death sentence, and that's the possibility of being incarcerated if they get COVID, because we know they're not going to get the treatment that they need, nor do they have the cleaning supplies and things like that to stay sanitary, and they can't practice the 6 feet rule either. So we're doing that since the George Floyd. We have been protesting. They've been peaceful protesting. In order for me to get some action, I drive to Charlotte and partner with the Charlotte chapter of All of Us Are Done, which is anchored by Christy Puggy Williams, to do their protests there in Charlotte. And what else? Oh yeah, so the bail fund has decided that they always do Black Mama bailouts, and they bail out mamas for Mother's Day. So on Juneteenth, which is next Friday, we'll be bailing out fathers for Father's Day. So we'll be doing that to get as many dads as we can free. We're going to be buying their freedom on Juneteenth to bring them home to their families.
Thank you for that, Muffin. So I hope that we're about to start talking about solution, and I know that all of us have something to say. Before I pass it off to Dorsey, who's going to start this conversation, this piece off for us. We try to be transparent here. And one of the things that I spoke to Dorsey about, as well as my other comrades, what I recognize that, one, this is my first time being a part of something like this, right? And when this situation first came about, Dorsey could probably tell you, like, we're having 2-hour conversations, and my emotions were so all over the place. What do I do? What am I fighting for? What is this? And what I was realizing when I took a moment to self-reflect is like, wow, I've been normalizing things that are not normal. I've been okay in things that are not okay. And I use the term like, I've been whitewashed is what I would say. Is because I realized, like, toning myself down, like questioning myself, what's ghetto, what's not, do these white people, do they value me just because, or do they look down on me? And, all these things. What I also realized is that when these things were happening in the news, when it makes it to the news, or now we have social media and people will point out stuff, how I realized, like, I felt like I was almost becoming desensitized, right? And then all of a sudden, these bursts of emotions come up, and I'm like, no, this shit is not okay. And then when I'm having conversations with mentors and different leaders, I'm realizing that how little do I know about my own people, my own culture. And so what I started to do is I started to participating in more calls like this. And I started speaking, hearing from the younger folks, right? Because that's who we see out there. There's a lot of young folks out there. And what I feel like is that a lot of folks were angry, were sad, were upset, all these different mix of emotions. But what is happening right now, especially for us younger folks, is that we are out there and we need guidance. We need strategy. Like, is it radical to think that there is no turning back from this? Is it radical to think that we can really defund the police? Is it too radical to think that we're going to take the police out of these all of the school systems in general? Is it radical to think that, that we can put a policy in place to hold judges, anybody that takes a sworn oath, that if there's any type of malpractice, that you are going to be charged just like anybody else with enhancements, right? You're so quick to throw enhancements on us, then it's the same to you. Is it too radical to think that when we have these police killings, or people, just think about, we hear about the killings, but what about the people who are unlawfully put behind these walls? So there's so many questions, so many things, like we walk away, we don't exactly have a specific solution, like right on, but at least we start in a conversation. And it's like you, Cedra, said, we don't want to just have these frivolous meetings anymore. We want action. And so what does this look like? Dorsey dropped one of the things that he taught me yesterday, is that the bus boycotts took 300 and something days. And if you can think about, when I started digging into that, that was our people. What does that look like when people are not taking buses? That means that everyday average, folks that are, living paycheck to paycheck, trying to figure out how to get to work. That means, people taking, to the hospital, work, whatever the case. Like, that took a lot of determination, unity, and strategy. So I would love to hear from our leaders, because I'm learning myself. And again, my emotions are all over the place, so we need some guidance. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Dorsey.
I encourage people to do is to please go back and listen to the first part of that speech of Martin Luther King, right? Please think about, I think it took 383 days or something like that for people to actually stay down, to actually get the right to sit on the front of the bus. So if that stuff is happening, we may need to think that we're going to be engaged in this in a protracted way. Should the police, when they kill us, somehow get a suspension and get paid too? It's almost like you can kill somebody, and then you get a vacation for it. Because that's what a suspension is. So don't come to work, we're going to pay you anyway. Should we be trying to tank the money and demand that all of the politician elected officials stop taking money from police associations? Because if they wasn't, when I was out there acting out and selling drugs and all the rest of it, they wouldn't take my money. But when they kill us, they figure like that's a legitimate source of money. We should try to delegitimize them being paid off and being bought by association, police association. Should we have something in place where we're demanding transparency? Because, like, if they shoot any one of us on this phone or anyone in the Zoom call right now, I can almost assure you they would be searching your background before they be asking their background. Because generally, when we get shot, killed, dogged out, somebody's gonna always ask the question, well, what was he doing? What kind of case did he have? And by the way, for just historical purposes, George Floyd is a little bit different, right? Because, like, this is not one that they cleaned up or selected on their own. Like, Rosa Parks was selected to sit on that bus. I believe Claudette Colvin, they didn't even raise her because they didn't think that she was an ashy foot just like me, So they didn't necessarily make that whole campaign centering around that sister that first sit there. With George, it's a little bit different, because, like, if you look at all the pictures of George, his hat's like that, He's who he is, right? So they didn't select him. History selected him. They would have selected the doctor who got shot. They wouldn't have selected George. So he's coming out of the same piece of cloth that we came out of. And George, when we was at that march and that demo, when they killed Eric, I heard what Eric's sister said. Eric's sister said, "We all from the streets." So they may shoot somebody else occasionally, but shit, they've been hunting us. And we get shot more often than not. So, like, stuff that I think that we should focus on is when they're talking about it's a criminal justice issue, don't just let him hang out there at that extreme edge. That extreme edge is that they killed us. Well, 2 million of us are locked up. And we dying anyway. We dying slowly. 2 million. So we should be able, every time they say they shot so many of us, and we should have said you were in prison 2 million. You know, we should connect those dots in a real way. We should also demand accountability at the local level and at the state level and at the national level. So, like, just not choking me out is not good enough. Because if I was to ask Paula, the people that they shooting and killing unarmed people, not all of them being choked out. They're getting shot for having a tree branch. They're getting shot for driving a car. They're getting shot for driving while black, walking while black, running while black, running while black and brown. It doesn't really make a difference. You know, they're killing us. So it's like at a certain point, what are some of the solutions? You know, do we get to sit on a jury? You know, do we get to decide the fate of other people? In the event that they kill somebody in Oakland, let's make sure they get tried in Oakland. Because they seem to be able to get a change of venue at the drop of a hat when everybody else is not getting a change of venue. You know, so, you know, what is that about? So what are the demands that we can consistently state? And like I said, I can yell all I want, Black Lives Matter, but it don't matter to all people. It really don't matter to all people. So like solutions that I'm suggesting, we should be demanding transparency. We should be demanding the en masse incarceration. We should be demanding that we brought to the table to enter into discussion in a respectful way, since it's us who they're hunting for. It's us who's bearing the burden of dying, and it's generally us who's bearing the burden of going to prison. How do we pull up to that table in such a way where you won't necessarily have people who are not necessarily directly impacted, not necessarily respecting anything that you got to say? So I know me and George them is going to be in Sacramento doing whatever we do. And my solution is, so when y'all see that we doing this surrounding the state capitol, first of all, we're going to be trying to dispel that notion that there's a few bad apples. Second of all, I didn't have so many young white people ask me, what are we going to do? What should we be doing? So how do we provide leadership to those people who are asking to be led and that's currently woke? And I can tell you, if you want movement to die, just sit back and don't do shit. You know, so if you don't do nothing about this moment, this shit will pass too. So like when I'm saying we're going to Sacramento, let's make sure that those other people that just joined the fight stay in the fight with us also. You know, and they might all not turn out to be Conrads, but shit, let's use the allies that we can, and let's lose this moment that these people are suffering from guilt, because some of them are functioning off of guilt. And that guilt shit don't last that long. So we might, you know, figure out, like, how do we do something? And Cedra down there in Bakersfield, if you got people that's dying, you know, break out the pictures of their family members and bring them to Sacramento on July the 1st.
Hey, we coming.
You know, so like you know, so stuff like that I'm asking y'all is what is, and I don't mind being in coalitions, But if you join the coalitions, don't be an invisible participant in the coalition. Because some of us are joining coalitions, hey, bruh, I was sitting back watching the TV when Kentucky showed up, and I looked twice and seen that flag flying, and I was saying, my people are there. My people are there. When we went to Georgia, when Georgia was leading the march in Oakland, shit, Oscar was carrying our flag too. Show up, you know, and not only demonstrate, have conversations with people.
Right.
In a real way. So my solution in California, the next thing that I'm organizing is for July the 1st. Me and George is getting down that way. And I noticed in the chat room, Paula said, we got 300 people already identified as being gunned down that's unarmed. Now, the real question is, some of us could have had an arm, and we could have had the gun in the back of our pants and still got killed. We could have had a buck knife, still got killed. It don't mean that we was necessarily pulling it, you know, or actually, you know, doing that. But they just make an assumption because you armed, you merit being killed. So I haven't even wrestled with what do we do about all these other family members who loved ones then lost their lives that wasn't attacking and just got, you know, because I know that they actually trying to justify the deaths. But the first thing I want to do was to make sure that we dispel this notion that there's only a few bad apples. You know, if we already got to 300 people that we identified in probably 4 days, it's not a few bad apples. And we only looking in the state of California. There was a question that I seen that somebody asked on this line, do they have a place to go to? So, Paula, I'm asking you to post the website for, I think it's police violence or something, mapping police violence. And you can go there and find out who they killed in your state.
Yes, thank you, Dorsey.
Okay.
No, just because we're over to 1 o'clock, I'm trying to, I see people dropping off, and I know that, you know, any of our panelists who have to go, please feel free. I know, you know, everybody's time. But, you know, again, if you can, please stay on this conversation and continue to chat with one another in the boxes as well as ask questions. George, my question is for you, is that you work a lot with the youth, you know, and you've been out there, you've done the fuck you curfew, you doing this, you know, we did the march the other day, and you just been out there. Again, how do we organize the youth and keep them engaged and keep this going?
Yeah, no, thanks for that question, London. And I'd like to also address a couple that I seen got popped up on just the Q&A screen. So I'm gonna try to be as quick as possible, and I'm gonna just try to just give me that look like I'm gonna go over time already. So real quickly, just there's a question about just systemically, like how are we gonna, you know, given this the system of oppression like this goes all the way back to colonialism, you know, as the brother said earlier, you know what I mean? The very first police were what? The slave catchers, and guess who else? The cavalry. The very first prisons was the slave plantation and the reservation. And it's no coincidence when we look at who are the communities, the populations most impacted by police violence and incarceration, but it's people of African descent and people of indigenous descent. You know what I'm saying? And those of y'all who might ask the question of Latinx, well, what do you think a Latinx is? I don't know myself, but that's not really a racial group. That's an ethnic group made up of people of African and indigenous descent. So maybe we need to, you know, just start calling that out a little bit more. So one, and how do you reform that? If those are the roots of policing, how do you reform that? There ain't no reforming that shit. We need to fundamentally transform. That means we have to disband the police, defund the police, abolish, and we got to start over fresh. You know what I'm saying? And the other thing we know is that in many cases, 80% of, you know, as much as 80% of city budgets, but majority of city budgets are consumed by law enforcement. And we don't need police protection. We need protection from the police. They don't make us safer. We keep us safe. And the best way to actually promote public safety is by investing in a safety net, a basic safety net of food, clothing, and shelter. So that's how we keep us safe. You know what I'm saying? And that's going to improve public safety. And all this investment in mass incarceration too, diverting those funds and to back to the just creating a safety net for folks. If we create viable employment and educational opportunities, then we ain't gonna have to deal with crime. You know what I'm saying? So that's the point number one. Two, in terms of your question, London, about how do we support the young people were gonna be out there on the streets, whether or not I was out there. So I had an incumbent responsibility to be out there, one, to protect them, to give them strategic direction, and to make sure we're being in solidarity. And I got health issues. I'm diabetic, high cholesterol. I got early stages of COPD, a respiratory condition that's hereditary. So we got a pandemic of COVID going on that's disproportionately impacting Black and brown communities, but we also have a pandemic of police terrorism and these new age slave plantations that's also disproportionately impacting Black and brown communities. You know what I'm saying? So I got to choose which one can I actually be more proactive about? Because one, I'm not a fucking virologist, so I can't be in a lab trying to find the fucking vaccine. That's somebody else's lane and role. But I can't be out there on the streets during the historic moment to make sure that my daughter and others are being supported, because my daughter was out there and she got shot up with rubber bullets and had bruises all over her body. She got tear gas, she got arrested, and she got cited. And as a father, I feel an incumbent responsibility to be out there for my daughter and everybody else's babies. They attacked our babies. That's why we had an event 2 days later that said, fuck your curfew, because they used the curfew as a pretense to attack our children who were out there marching beautifully, powerfully. Nobody was even acting up. And I don't want to create or even reinforce the notion of a false dichotomy of the good activists versus the bad activists, because they do that shit to us as formerly incarcerated people, violent versus nonviolent. And I had violent offenses. So I'm the last one to reinforce a messed up false narrative like that. But what I do want to say is those young people were peaceful. So there was no ifs, ands, buts, justifications, rationals. And I wouldn't have given a goddamn if those young people were tearing shit up, breaking windows, because you can replace a window, but you can't replace a life. You know what I'm saying? But these young people were acting peacefully, beautifully. There were mamas with strollers, families. And what did the police do even before the curfew? They decided to have a curfew with just a few hours notice that nobody was even notified about. Nobody knew about this curfew. And then an hour before the curfew, preemptively, to disperse the crowd, quote unquote, they start tear gassing and shooting rubber bullets. And these so-called non-lethal weapons are not non-lethal. We see them take people's heads off. We got people who are permanently blind. You know what I'm saying? They can kill too, because they can mess up your respiratory issues. People who have died from being tear gassed if they're asthmatic. And when you have a pandemic that also attacks your respiratory system, every public health expert in the country is telling you, you should not be pepper spraying, you should not be tear gassing. None of this bullshit is okay right now. So, I just want to say that how we organize our young people is showing up for them, showing love, being there on the streets with them, and giving them strategic direction, because where they are, I have been, and where I am, they will be. And we need to think about what kind of ancestor do we want to be? You know what I'm saying? So that's how we show up for our young people. The last thing I want to say about being strategic in this moment is how do we link the organizing with the policy? So now I got the governor's office, I got Senator Bradford and all these different folks in California who was already saying the legislative year was over. All of a sudden they're like, what can we do on police accountability? Well, now's the moment that we can push more aggressively. So my organization has passed a number of bills. I won't burden folks with the actual bill numbers because that ain't gonna mean shit to you. I will share with you some of the victories we've already had. And the heavy lift ain't even in passing the ledge, it's implementation. So my organization was born out of gang injunction organizing, and they put injunction on Black and brown folks, criminalizing us even for non-criminal behavior. You know what I'm saying? We had a bill that allowed us to put an injunction on the police. Yes, an injunction on the police. So all you have to do is prove a consistent pattern by a law enforcement agency of civil rights abuses. And guess what? I don't care what police agency you're looking at. They all have consistent patterns of civil rights abuses. So the burden should not be that difficult. And if so, you can request injunctive relief. And a municipal court judge can grant, before we had to go to the feds for that shit. Fuck the feds. You know what I'm saying? Injunctive relief and place an injunction on the police. The other one we passed was we took Penal Code 141, which made it a felony for a police officer to plant, destroy, or tamper with physical evidence. Somebody asked about teaching the young people know your rights. We were teaching our young people know their rights. And guess what? Those rights were still being violated. Our young people would try to video record and their phones would get snatched up and confiscated. So we expanded Penal Code 141 to say not just physical evidence, but digital evidence. So if they snatch up your phone, now they're tampering with digital evidence, and that's a felony. Now we got to do something about these crooked ass DAs because they get bankrolled as publicly elected officials by the police officers unions. So we're trying to introduce a bill right now this session to create an independent prosecutor and take away jurisdiction from the DAs to prosecute all these rotten ass police. And those who say just a few bad apples, fuck all that noise. You know what I mean? Where are these good cops stopping these so-called bad cops? It's part of the culture. It's systemic. They're rooted in slave catching and in the cavalry. Their charge originally was genocide, and it continues to be genocide of Black and brown communities, of African and indigenous peoples. So, like I said, don't talk to me about the so-called bad apples bullshit. So, we have an opportunity to disband, defund the police, and invest in areas that actually are going to serve our people. And I know I spoke a whole bunch, so I apologize for taking up so much space, but all I can say is power to the people and fuck the police.
Thank you for that. Eucedra, you are, one of the things that we know about you is that you, like you said, I myself, it's a weird noise happening. I don't know if that's me. You guys hear that?
Cedar, do you have a mic or another device on near your mic?
No, I don't.
Okay, well, Eucedra, I wanted to ask you if we can get your mic right, is that, you as a mother raising a Black son, out here heavily in the community, all of us in Bakersfield, leader, what is your thoughts on what does this look like? What do we want from all of this? What do we want from this movement?
Hey, you see, the police fucking with your mic.
I love you, Dorothy.
Hey, there's something really wrong with your mic. I don't know if you can pull it closer to yourself or jiggle it or give it a swift whack or something.
Is that better? Okay,
yeah, that's better.
So what I want is to have greater access to information. That is imperative in our fight, that we have this information available so that we know how to use our voice appropriately, so we can push that paper like they push paper on us. We need to push paper back on their ass, right? So that we can get stuff to rolling. We have not traditionally push paper. We use our words, we cuss people out, we scream and shout, but we got to start pushing paper. That's what we need in Bakersfield, and letting them know that they work for us and not the other way around.
Thank you for that, Eucedra. Tariq, you want to tell us what's your ideas on some solutions on how we can keep this movement going? Yeah, I can't hear you. Can you guys hear me? Yep, there you go. Yep, there you go.
What was your question?
I said, what's your ideas on how what do we need and what do we want from this movement and how do we keep it going?
And it's not even what I want from the movement, but what, like you said, what we want from this movement. So the people are asking the question of what do we do? Not what happened to us, not all the atrocities that we already have enumerated many of times and seeing videos over and over on social media, but what do we do now? And people's attentions are very short and we're losing the momentum. We need to get it to critical mass like they did in South Africa when they had that pendulum swing and that power move. And the people need leadership. They want action steps. But the first thing that we need to do is recognize that we all suffer from white supremacy toxicity. Every one of us, no matter what human being that you are. The first thing that they did was divide us into colors. So what I asked to do and what I'm going to say now is I'm going to refer to all of us as human beings and not by any colors, black, brown, white, red, or green. None of that is acceptable anymore because that's white supremacy language. So I'm asking everybody who's listening, stop referring to yourself as a color, because white is on top, it's a legal definition for free man, and black is on the bottom for slave. The next thing is we really have to understand why white people did what they did to us. And when we look at their last dark age, which was that medieval dark age period, they were doing what they are doing to us to each other. So in 1492, when they set sail to the New World, it was already in their DNA to do what they've been doing. And they've been blowing this toxicity on the rest of us, and then we've been blowing it back on each other. So it's a cycle of terrorism, land grab, annihilation. All of this behavior is in the DNA and is in ours now too. And that's why we need ablution. We need cultural, mental, physical, psychological, and spiritual ablution. That's why you have a white Jesus with blue eyes and blonde hair on the cross instead of what he really looks like as the Bible describes. That's why in Islam, you have all these fractions fighting each other. And whenever you talk about Islam, they get a white-looking Arab person when black people established here in the United States. These are all the manifestation of white supremacy toxicity. So we have to purge ourselves of this, and every one of us has it in us. I'm still going through it. So a part of that is using this shelter in place and meditating and looking deep inside, because the revolution is not on television or on social media. It's inside every one of us. And we have to be honest and truthful. In London, you talked about that, questioning what is ghettoism. This is the place that white supremacy invented to put us in. Why would we be proud of that? Why would we want to live in that perpetual poverty state? So the first action step is this. We need information, direction, and steps to take. The first steps to take is this. We can defund police departments. They've done it in New Jersey. They're doing it in Minneapolis. Can you hear me? The next step is to really come together organization like
we having a problem with your mic.
Signal, man.
And then regional and then national, and put forth what we need. Get back to the office, I'll continue. Somebody else can go right now.
Thank you for that. Henry, Steve, how can we make sure that we are staying, inclusive, it's all of us and none, total sonata. Like, how do we, again, from you all's perspective, like keep it unified and keep it focused on our mission and what we're doing?
You want to go first, Henry?
Yeah, go ahead, brother. Kick it off. I'll follow you.
Okay. That's a good question, London. How do we keep connected? And I think we do that by realizing that the country came together with the youth. They brought we the people together, right? But what we did was be able to formulate a demand. So we're talking about, say an example, defund police is a demand. How you keep that energy connected is get people to understand that slogan has a whole bunch of other things connected to it. And that defunding the police as a demand in this movement, right, is really only a small part to a very big problem. And the reason being is because if you defund the police as to make the connection between the energy that's there to our movement to end mass incarceration, you really aren't making logical policy sense that's going to get passed for several reasons. One, first and foremost, unless you get rid of the massive laws that require enforcement, you're going to continue to need police. Second, the absence of state legislators in various areas coming out and talking about this, is also apparent that they're probably not planning on giving us anything that we really need that's tangible at the state legislative level. So one of the ways to keep this connected and keep youth engaged is get them and help educate them, right? Because real knowledge is to know the extent of one's ignorance. And a lot of us are operating from ignorance because we're operating with energy to do something done, but we don't have the knowledge it takes to get it done. And that's where groups like All of Us or None and the experienced activists that we have across the country come in, because we can fill the gaps of where that knowledge is coming from. And what's rich about that is that it's not coming from academics. It's not coming from a lawyer. And I'm not saying lawyers are bad. I'm just going to make a point. It's not coming from outside of directly impacted people in communities. It's coming from us directly, who are coming up with solutions that we're directly dealing with, right? So that's one way to do it. The other thing is to Dorsey's point about 300 and something days of resistance. If you don't go to your state legislators and have them change the banking laws that allow banks to invest $500 million or more, and some banks close to $5 billion in prison systems, you can defund the police chanting all you want, and it's not going to stop. So one of the things that we're ignorant about in the movement that's occurring right now is that the other animal, the other hidden truth that's in front of us, that's hiding behind the face of visible government that we can target, is corporate America that invest in and run the systems that keep this white supremacist going in the country. So one of the ignorant things about the movement approach is understanding how far the ladder goes up. And so we really need to start targeting corporations and corporate leaders and start looking at how they're investing in the criminal justice system that make money off of putting us in prisons. Because that's the animal. So I'm gonna end with this. That's how you bring everybody into the fold. We have to educate them that defunding the police is a small little nut in a huge bag, right? In a huge bag of a bunch of other nuts. And so we're not gonna get to anything until we start educating our communities. And we're gonna go through this one more time if we don't understand that it's not just defunding the police, it's coming up with viable plans on where we redirect and invest those funds, because those funds are going to have to go somewhere, right? And so community organizations who are not in our fight are going to profit in the millions from the work that we're doing to defund the police and other stuff. So we have to be smart that while we're defunding the police and bringing the movement together, that we're not empowering another form of oppression or economically tilting the balance towards organizations who we know are not going to do a good job in our communities. So when we talk about defunding the police, let's also talk about how we as directly impacted organizations get some of those funds too. So that's another way so that we can be the managers of how we control where those funds go into those communities. And we need to recreate those systems like the Black Panthers started before they were criminalized. We need to be the caretakers of those funds. I'm gonna end there before I carry on too much. Henry?
Thank you, Steve. No, I definitely agree with Steve. There's various components to this work, right? And like defunding the police will only create so much, but if we defund the police, we want to request that money is put into community and to rapid crisis response teams who are connected with community, who can do community healing work, to help a lot of our community process trauma, losing a loved one to gang or gun violence, to incarceration, to police brutality, and having alternatives to incarceration, alternatives to calling the police, where we get there and we come to the hoods and we mediate and we're connected to the youth and we can stop some of the violence that goes on within our own people and carrying on those efforts, right? There's that business of it, right? But there's also the policies. There's a lot of outdated laws here that have oppressed us for so long that became normalized. Oh, I remember being a joint. Well, that's just the way it is. Everybody used to say just the way it is. Fuck just the way it is. Let's fucking change this shit. Let's research. If you're locked up, pick up the Title 15, start studying law. You know what I mean? One of the greatest weapons we can have is knowing our rights, knowing the laws that govern us that are implemented through these systems, and strategizing with other partners and collaborators on how to break these oppressive systems that have been beating the dog crap out of our people. We definitely need to keep our people unified by honoring each other, right? There's been a lot of personal baggage that we've had amongst communities of color, brown on brown, black on black, then black on brown. But now, through movements like this, there's definitely been a big need for our people to all come together, right? And we've had a lot of white allies who've been stepping up their game. And so, in that sense, we need to bring about the leadership and not just be, like the brother, one of the previous brothers was saying in the back, while other people who have never been impacted like we have telling us what we do or don't need to do, right? They should have us at the table, right? We should be at the table when it comes to addressing these policies. When it comes, we should be putting pressure on the mayor, to stop being a sellout and freaking really work with the people and be about the people, right? And holding those organizations and those leaders that want to come and just do kumbaya shows and take all the spotlight whenever there's tragedy, but they're not there on a daily. They're not there sweating on these calls, showing up to the Capitol, putting pressure on these different areas to really make systemic changes in our communities. And so, just really staying unified and try not as people of color, try not to be as political with each other. We're going to have differences with other allies that have different ways of advocacy, right? And they don't know, okay, that's their lane. They're going to do it that style. This is our lane. We're going to be in the front lines and we're going to call shit for what it is. And we're going to be unapologetic about it. And so, really just uplifting our people, staying united and really focusing and strategizing on these different systems that we face. We have a lot of systems that are whipping our ass. We have CPS, probation, parole. We have the juvenile hall system. We have the prison system. We have the police system who engages that whole process, right? The main problem where it starts with the cops, with these freaking cops, how they just come in and criminalize anything they can on you. They're not providing no resources. They're not providing no help. These resources and this help and this healing is going to be by people like us that look like us, that are culturally aware of the dynamics of our communities, that know our people by names. And so, we definitely need to move and taking money from these cops and putting it in community so community can help community, but also to change in laws to hold these people accountable and to limit the amount of cops we have. We have over 75% of our city's budgets are going to cops, so you got more cops. That leads to more hypercriminalization. Hypercriminalization is leading to mass murder and mass incarceration of people of color. So we really need to start doing our own research, right? Gathering our own data, studying these different laws and the impact and these different bills that have been passed in the past, so that we can start strategizing on bringing new results on why these bills are not effective, why we need to defund the police, and ideally, in theory, in the future, abolish them completely, right? Because these motherfuckers are slave captures, right? And they still have that mentality. They will continue having that mentality. And that mentality runs all the way from the military, all the way to the way they run the prison system. It's just been too damn abusive, and it has been dogging our people for much too long. And enough is enough, and we need to rise up against all this bullshit and this madness. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Henry. Thank you. Before I ask Dr. Zaria a question, Elisha, I've been thinking about you as, we're hearing everyone speak and so forth, and thinking about, which was only a few years ago, it's like that I was in school myself. And I want to know, you as a Black man, and I'm going to ask you this question, but I'm going to come back to you. You as a Black young man, what does it feel like for you, what you're seeing right now happening? And what does it feel like for you that you could possibly be criminalized just based off of the color of your skin? And what does that make you feel like? Is it a thought that this is a recent thought that just came to you? Or have you always had like these thoughts about, man, why am I being judged just based off or treated differently based off of the color of my skin? So I'm going to ask you that question in just a second. So Dr. Zaria, I don't want to put you out there, but if you could help us with this question, and if not, you could pass it on to someone else. You know, like Dorsey said at the beginning of this conversation, and I've gotten this question oftentimes myself, and perhaps other panelists have had this question asked to them, is our allies are asking, how can they get involved? What should they do? And what would your response be to that?
So I get this question a lot, and anybody that follows me on social media, I've been actually voicing my thoughts about that quite a bit. Just because of the makeup of my area, Cincinnati is probably about 50-50, but we're a very conservative area. And honestly, I start with just the fact that just knowledge, like they need to learn. They need to take some time and actually listen. And be willing to follow direction. I think that a lot of the people that I've come in contact with have been pretty humble in their requests of having a better understanding. But I've also been in the protests, and I've seen some very young people who really don't know have been disrespectful to a lot of our elders in this space. And so I think you have to be willing to listen. You have to be willing to take directives from the people who are impacted by this, and just being in a place of being willing to learn. That's just what I've experienced here. I think that, like I said, I've encountered quite a few people, and I appreciate the fact that some people have come to me in a way of humbleness, but I've also had some people that have been in attack mode, that have basically said, like, why are you all destroying your own stuff? And then I have to show them it's not us. In most of the cases that I've seen, it hasn't been us destroying anything. We've been the ones that have been peacefully protesting. So I've been referring them honestly to some different, some books, some different people, some lectures. That's the space I'm in typically. And I think that it's important for them to be in observance of even things like this, being able to listen to our voices and being able to hear what we're discussing right now, so that they have a better understanding. And so they're not going into this with a we know approach, and being able to really just yield to us in what we are saying that we need as a community.
Thank you for that, Dr. Zaria. Elisha, do you remember the question I asked?
Yeah. And I have to say, like, to be like killed for the color of my skin is pretty scary, because, and it's been in my head ever since I heard about like Trayvon Martin's killing, and how young he was, because he was like 15 when he got killed, or 14, and I'm 15 right now. So it's really it puts in perspective that age isn't an exception to how the police treat black people, and how they can do whatever they want, and believe that they won't be held accountable. And I think that them being held accountable and showing that they can be held accountable is like a first step into making sure that this stops. And like, it's very scary and real about how many stories that I hear about and how many stories that I don't hear about.
Elisha, I just want to thank you. You are, anybody else want to offer Elisha some words right now?
Keep living, homie. My grandchildren need you. I need you. That's what I can tell you. I can remember doing the movie 13, and when I was doing that movie 13, I spent most of my time off camera crying because I didn't have the ability to protect my community. It was the most emasculating feeling I ever had. Is when I got to the notion that and if I start crying, when I think about they're killing young people and they're killing women, they always been killing dudes. So I had got sort of like accustomed to them killing us. When they got to this other category of people, I didn't know how to emotionally process that. So the thing I want to give you as advice is stay alive. And I'm not going to even tell you what to do when the police stop you, because we done did everything that I thought that we could do to stay alive. We done prayed, we done marched, we done litigated, we done begged, we done did all of that stuff, and it hasn't stopped them from killing us. So the thing that I got to tell you is to stay alive and to be conscious, that skin tone and pigmentation has a value that we must actually be conscious of, because they hunting us. There's one other thing that I want to tell y'all, because every once in a while we can get into this platform thing of judging where people are fitting at in movement. And and I've traveled and been to a lot of places: Cuba, Africa, New Zealand, Mexico, a whole bunch of other places. And I know that when they was fighting in South Africa, that they had people fighting on different levels. So everybody might not be able to be in the bush and down on the streets. Some people, as far as they can go, is marching around. Other people may be able to go and do policy work. Other people may go a little bit further, because I've been to demonstrations lately, and as I get older, my grandkids start questioning, why am I going to the motel when we put people up and we know that some of those people are infected with COVID-19? Why am I going out hanging out with a march with George, and it's a youth march, and I'm marching around Oakland? What makes me do that shit? And it's scaring my grandkids at this point, because they think that I'm extremely vulnerable. But I don't know how not to engage. And I have to stop judging other people who are not coming to the street to engage, because I think that we can win. I know that we can win. And I think that the thing that I could, if I had any advice to get you, find you some more young homeboys, homegirls, and unify, and stay unified. Because some parts of the stuff, when you grow older, you start chasing dead trees, dollar bills, and you'll be responsible for a whole bunch of this other stuff. And so it's like people come to work for me, and they college students, and I tell them what they got to give could be the moment they give right now, because as soon as they graduate, everybody's going to ask them for that money back, and they ain't going to be able to work and get down like they can get down now. Now, I think all of us got an obligation here to actually think about, how do we show up in this movement, and how do we own this movement that's about our lives? Because when I was at the demonstration and talking for the public defender the other day, everybody was standing on the court, the steps of the court, and and I told them they were standing on my front yard, because I had did a year in the county jail where they were standing. I was the only one that had did a year in that jail. When I first moved to Oakland, I moved to Oakland in handcuffs. So at a certain point, Elijah, I want you to have a different future, bro. I don't want to see you shackled down, because I know that y'all generation are probably doing something. It's y'all turn. It's y'all turn. Me and George was at the rally marching around, but we know it's their turn. And y'all patience, y'all don't have any patience. So I hope that y'all have endurance, because you might need to, I don't think they're just gonna flip over and say we just absolutely wrong. We're gonna defund the police. We're gonna do any of the other stuff, you know. So I'm just keep pushing out over 300 days, close to 400 days, for them to let us ride in the front of the bus. You know, when you go to a free breakfast program, don't think the government gave you shit. They took it from the Black Panther Party. They was the one that started the breakfast program. When they teach you about sickle cell anemia, don't think that they teaching you about sickle cell anemia, because the Black Panther Party taught them about sickle cell anemia. You got a history that's so rich, but we very seldom have time enough to sit down and say, this is your history. You know, so this is an apology from an older man that we haven't sit down and actually conveyed the depth of the movement and the depth of the history, because you got a rich history. And if you don't come from kings, you came from survivors of a damn thing when they tried to kill all of us, you know. So, you know, I'm at to wind up because I got another Zoom call, y'all. Yeah. And I want to tell y'all, man, this was a real great conversation. We still got 54 people online. And we started out, and I think we got close to 100 people that was listening. And we've been at this almost 2 hours.
It says a lot. Thank you for that, Dorsey. And really quick, because I know we all have to go spend 2 hours, like Dorsey said. Elisha, quick question. Do you know what involuntary servitude is?
No.
And I'm just learning myself, Elisha. Do you know what the 13th Amendment is?
13th Amendment, it abolished slavery.
Right, which still
the exception of prisons.
Right. And that's one of the things that, you know, you've seen it in our chat, and that's what All of Us or None, Legal Services of Prisons with Children, we are working on now, because we want to radically remove that from every constitution, the 13th Amendment. And my other question is, have you read The New Jim Crow?
No.
Okay, well, I'm just reading it for the first time myself as well, because that's what I realized that when this movement started, that's what I was missing, was knowledge. And so I have your mom's email address and her phone number. I'm going to mail this copy to you. And not only are we going to mail this copy to you, we're going to mail you 2 copies, because then you read the one for yourself and then you pass one off to someone else that hasn't read it as well. And that's a big part I think is going to take for this movement, right? Is us uplifting and encouraging and educating each other. And so, Steve, I think you held it up as well.
I actually have building a new movement, the organizing guide, and I'd be happy to ship in one as well, because I have a few here.
Absolutely.
That book, the New Jim Crow, it goes with the organizing guide.
Absolutely, yes, we have both. As all of us, if you're work with Dorsey and you are a fellow, you're an organizer, it's almost mandatory for us to read this. And so I want to thank, really quick though, before we leave off, I have to ask, like, Marlon, Chicago, is like, I thought I saw you at the retreat. Aren't you All of Us or None?
Absolutely.
Brother, why haven't you said anything? I'm like, I see this picture and it keep on changing.
No, so I was on and off. I had another call I had to jump on, but I'm Marlon Chamberlain representing Chicago.
Thank you, brother. Really quick, how about you leave us off? And that is the beauty about All of Us or None. If you do not have a chapter, if you're not a part of, a member of All of Us or None, go to our website right now, allofusor.none.org, and join our, you'll find a location, a chapter that's next to you. And guess what? If there is not a chapter around you, you can contact our national organizer, Oscar Flores, and you can get and start your own chapter. Every person on this call right now is an All of Us or None leader, and is also formerly incarcerated. So please, Marlon, take us off this call and let us know what's your idea.
London,
yes.
One other thing that say that when they ask you, did you know anything about involuntary servitude? The last issue of the All of Us or None newspaper.
Yes.
Have y'all received that chat? Because we should have sent y'all copies of the newspaper. This newspaper issue is on involuntary servitude. So I hope that y'all, take time to read the newspaper, because that newspaper belongs to all of us. We may produce it, but y'all capable of writing articles, submitting articles, having chapter reports and all the rest of it, because we created it for all of us. We may, if Paul is still on the phone, Paul is always looking for something to put in there. So everybody, thank you. And you can take us on home, homie.
And anybody who wants to receive a newspaper, please write Paula at prisonerswithchildren.org. She had to hop off the call because we are doing legislative visits today for ACA 6, which in the state of California, when passed, I'm going to say if passed, but when passed, because I'm confident that our comrades are not going to settle for anything else, is that it will allow people that are currently in the state of California on parole the right to vote. That means that it will give the right to vote back to 50,000 people. And the power of vote, like everybody has said, we got to make sure that we got to level up with these people, okay? So Marlon, please take us out.
So real quick, Richard sent me some notes just to report out on what's happening in Chicago. And I think Benny Lee is still on the line. But I just wanted to start off by saying there was some tension in the Black and brown communities here. And so Benny Lee was able to sort of take the lead and help and mediate some of the tension between the Black and brown communities. We actually had a caravan that was over 200 cars that rode around Chicago in the different Black and brown neighborhoods with both flags representing both ethnic groups, and we were able to sort of mediate and bring peace in those communities. Also, Richard and I and other groups are working to defund the local police department, establish universal basic income, and pass a reparations bill, HR 40. We are also working to build out a movement here in Illinois, a statewide movement, to address a lot of the challenges that we as directly impacted folks face. So that is our update. And I would love to get with Dorsey to sort of pick his brain around movement building.
I love to pick yours too, bro.
Well, thank you.
Hey, homie, for everybody, my cell phone number is 415-516-9599.
Got it.
So, I ain't no soft foot, homie. I take calls late at night, early in the morning.
Got you.
Asidra, when did you call me? 7 in the morning?
Sure did. Wake up, sir. We got a lot to talk about.
Ken called London. I was on the phone with you again, 12 at night.
Hey, this movement, everybody will say, I think that
we can't win the revolution if we ain't woke to actually fight it.
It's a way of life. It's definitely not a 9 to 5. I want to thank everybody for joining us. It makes me so proud to be an All of Us or None member when we can come and have these conversations and build off of one another, share with one another, unite with one another, and teach one another. Knowledge is power. And please, if you have any thoughts on different topics that we need to talk about to address, please reach out to me at london@prisonerswithchildren.org. And thank you guys for holding on this call. And I know I will do these ands, but right now, please go to your Instagram page, your Twitter, Facebook, and go to Free the Vote 2020. And you look that up and our social media will come up. Please, even if you're not in the state of California, please join us on making sure that ACA 6 gets passed. It's a 2-year bill. If we're in our 2nd year, if it does not pass this time, it will die, and that is unacceptable. And so please join us with this. And if you have any policies, that's what it's about, the numbers and unity. And so if you have something that you would like for us to push, that you would like to notify us about, please reach out to us.
And we'll make phone calls for you. We'll call from out the state and say, hey, they need to do something.
That's what we do. Because if not us, then who? All of us?
Or none.
Bye, family.
They're beyond return.